All right. Well, hello to Chantal, Alexandra, or whoever else might be watching this. So this will be my jury affair video. I did it with Gabrielle St. George, which happened to be my practicum partner. So she will be asking me 4 questions during this video. So I hope you enjoy the quality of the questions and the quality of my answers as well. So good show.
Hello, Antoine. Here are the 4 questions that I had to ask you for the assignment. So, my first question is you mentioned in the analysis of your C3 that a way to fill the extra 5 minutes at the end of your period would be to have ready made questions you can ask the students in order to make them interact. But what are other ways that you can think of for filling that 5 minute gap?
All right. Well, thank you for the question. So, yeah, I can say that Alexandra can confirm that this was a problem of mine for the second supervisor visit that he did. I found that I had a lot of trouble finding gaps and gauging properly how much time a certain activity would take. So this meant that sometimes there would be a 5 minute that would not be filled during my classes. So I spoke to him about it, and he told me that I could either use a filler, like such as games like Five Things or Around the World, which are things that we've covered in our day-to-day classes. Or one of my friend Marc-André said what I could do is that, obviously not every classes, but what I could do is that if the students behaved well during the class, what I could do is that every now and then I could promise them that they could have some free time to speak, as long as they speak in English between each other. So let's say if I have 5 minutes at the end to spare, I could just give them that time, and it'd be a, sort of a reward, and I think they would appreciate it because and in a sense, I think it would avoid me doing some class management in terms of having tell them to be quiet and whatnot when I'm giving instructions, because they know at the end of the period they would have time to talk to each other, so they could wait for that time period instead of interrupting me to talk. Or another way I could do things is really have a certain ritual that per se where I would say a joke or do a certain activity that they would know every now and then to expect when there's a filler per se to give during my lessons. So I think in a sense that would be what the type of solutions I would have to these same type of things where I have 5 minutes to fill in my classes, which is something that might be common as I'm starting this profession and I'm still not sure how to gauge my groups properly in terms of the discrepancy between a certain group and another. So essentially, yeah.
My second question is during your first practicum, you were at Le Triolet, and for the second one, you went to Montcalm. Did you prefer teaching at a particular school? Do you believe teachers, like students, have schools where they want to teach more than another, and why do you think so?
All right, so this was a bit of a two-part question. So for the first one, I'll start off by saying, well, what I found with the Triolet and the Montcalm. One thing I particularly like with the Triolet is that the fact that we're sports-oriented. So I'm a hockey fan, and there were some hockey groups. So for me, it would have been easy to integrate hockey references in my lessons. So that was one of the strong points that would have maybe led me to want to teach at Triolet. But after experiencing both schools, I would definitely prefer teaching at Montcalm for a variety of reasons. One of them is that it's more organic. It's more less of a private school type of vibe like Triolet. And what I mean by that is that the students are really themselves. There's not as much like clicks in terms of the students. I found from my personal experience there was a lot less bullying in that regard. So that would be one of the strong points as to why I would prefer teaching at Montcalm versus Triolet. Uh, Another thing for the second part of the question, it was I do believe that teachers have would prefer teaching at a certain school, and I think it's perfectly normal. At the end of the day, I kind of see like schools as kind of like a family, so they have their own beliefs and they all have their own values. So I think and with that in mind, it would be perfectly normal for some teachers to not feel like they are in a right fit in terms of what the school is trying to reflect. So, and with that in mind, it would reflect in their teaching, and it would not be as comfortable. So I think it is important for a teacher to feel like the school that they're teaching at is their home and fits well hand in hand with their own beliefs.
And my third question is, do you believe class management is something you can learn and practice, or you are born with, and why?
All right, to start, that's an excellent question, Gabriel. So I think it's kind of like the chicken or the egg theory. Uh, I think it's a mixture of both, really. To give you an example, Alexander's used this a lot, but if you take a guy like Philippe Pichet, that's really huge and intimidating looking. If you put him in a school, there's a very strong chance that just his presence and his size will do a lot of the work for him in terms of class management. Students will be scared of him, so they'll be less tempted to misbehave essentially. So with that in mind, I think there is that element that comes into play. But I do think class management, like anything, is really something that the more you practice, the better you get at it. I can speak from experience. During my practicum at the very beginning, since I had so many things to focus on and really get better at, such as correcting, really like repeating the answers, making sure that everyone can hear it, correcting their pronunciation if that was the case, writing the answer down without making any mistakes. It was really a lot of elements. So at the start, you were too busy focusing on those type of things, the little things, to really think of the bigger picture and really try to do class management if you saw that people were misbehaving. So it was really a bit of that. So I think over time, and really the more tools you add in your toolbox, as we have more courses or we attend more conferences or speak on campus type of things, those type of things will really help us be better teachers in terms of that competency and really class management. I think it's really a tool that it will always grow, and it will be something that you have to keep in mind since all groups will be different. So you will always be learning essentially and trying to be a better teacher in that regard.
For my fourth question, do you believe that as student teachers teaching a class for only 1 month, we can start off the practicum by instating our very own communication contract? What effect do you think it could have on the students if we did?
Uh, that's a solid question. I definitely think we can do that. I know Alexandria suggested that we start off, well, I start off the practicum at the elementary level that way. I think it's a good way to show that you're all business, and Jen has always told us to really start uh, as a lion and then end as a sheep. I did a direct translation there, but it's really essentially to really come out as strict at the very beginning and then slowly and gradually start being more relaxed and less strict on your discipline. It's really, I think it's a bit of that. I think it's very good to really make quite clear what you'll accept and what you won't, as long as it goes hand in hand with what your associate teacher has as a rule. I think it's a good way to really distinguish yourself. Let's say that you have a rule that's different from your associate teacher. Well, I'm the one teaching you from now for the next 5 weeks, and this is how I will do things. So I think it's a good way to really also distinguish yourself from, yes, Miss Joanne, or well, I'm Antoine, and this is how I will do things in your class for the next 4 weeks. Uh, I think it could give a good effect of security for the students because they will know what you expect from them and what you will not tolerate in their class. So I think that will really help a bit to be on the same page with you and your students, despite the fact that you really haven't had really a good link with them so far. I think it's really important that you, right off the bat, you establish your rules with them and you all agree on them together. So that's all, folks. So I would like to thank you very much, the two of you, for the support and the instructions you gave us throughout the year and throughout our practicum. So we'll take the time to wish you a very nice summer and see you next year.